All right, guys, it's time. I've got my SIG GTO, P211 GTO, and the Kimber 2K11 comp. We're gonna run these head to head. I know I did a short on it. We're gonna do some in-depth analysis here. We're gonna look at accuracy testing. We're gonna talk about groupings when it's shooting fast. We're gonna really dive in and see if you're getting into that, hey, I wanna get a really nice 2011 style gun, but I wanna do it at a budget that's somewhat reasonable and get something out of the box that I know I can trust and rely on that's gonna shoot really well and compete with those high-end 2011s. I think these two guns are things that you have to consider if that's you. So we're gonna run head-to-head and kind of find out which one should you buy. Let's get into it. Shooter, make ready. Are you ready? Stand by. All right, we're gonna start things off with the 2K11 here. All right, now the same kind of pattern here. I'm gonna go lower on that same left-hand side with the SIG here. All right. Today, we continue the analysis between the SIG P211 GTO and the Kimber 2K11 comp. We've looked at some slow motion data. Now I've got the Mantis out here with me, and the Mantis is going to be more than just the feel in my hand. It's going to be what's the data actually say about the recoil on these two guns. All right, we're back here at the shop. Unfortunately, my Mantis is not functioning properly. Now, I reached out to their customer service. I had a great conversation with a guy there in their customer service. They were extremely helpful, and they're sending me a replacement sensor. This sensor just isn't tracking quite right. They were immediately willing to ship it to me, but then they went above and beyond and wanted to see if we could diagnose what was happening and test and just make sure there wasn't a reset or something that we'd do. So I actually sent them the following video. And I'll show you in the video the three shots that I honed in on, and then the three shots that we were able to find exactly those shots on the sensor, and that's right here. Okay, I'm going to show you the three shots in question that we were able to show Mantis. I'm going to show them twice here. So here's shot one. Now, what the sensor was saying was that the recoil angle was 67 degrees positive one time and 77 degrees negative the next time. Basically, what that would have meant, I'm going to give you what 90 degrees means. On a recoil angle, it's how much is the gun tilting on the y-axis under recoil. So to get 90 degrees, for example, you would basically take the gun and rotate it all the way to its side where it's laying flat on its side in your grip. That would be 90 degrees. And the sensor was sensing that this gun rotated 67 degrees one way and 77 degrees the other way. Obviously, that didn't happen. Good on Mantis for giving me a new one under warranty. So obviously, that's not functioning quite properly. So anyway, they're sending me a new one. That data won't be available for this video. I'll do a short or something on an upcoming update. But look, I think there's enough footage and enough angles that I'm going to show you some more of me shooting the guns. I think you'll see the Mantis data would show that this gun, the SIG P211, shoots slightly flatter than and a little bit more softer recoil than the 2K11 does. In my hand, looking at the video, watching the slow motion, there is a small point in the column of the P211 on that. Okay, as you can see in the corner of the screen, I've got the consistency target up. And this target, you can see on the fine print on it if you look close, it says that this target's designed for three yards. 3 yards seems a little bit like it wouldn't really matter to anybody that's watching this. So I've backed up to 7 yards. To me, that's kind of the minimum. It's these circles are small enough that we're going to get a really good view of what that consistency looks like and what that accuracy looks like. So I'm going to put some rounds on these targets. I'm starting with the Kimber 2K11. Let's see how this goes. Rhythm. There we go. There we go. Oops. All right. I think that performed really well. It took me a couple rounds to get, I think my first 3 circles were a little rough, and then I found where the dot's hitting. And yeah, all right, I'll take that. Same test, SIG P211, consistency target at 7 yards. Let's see where we're at. There we go, found my spot. I think the Kimber was a little bit more accurate. Right through here, especially, you can see where I was doing pretty well with the Kimber. All right, I'm on to my next test. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to shoot doubles. So I mean, I'm not trying to win a race here, but I've got 10 circles up there. I've got 20 rounds in the gun. And I'm going to put doubles, and I'm going to go for a pace that's, I'm thinking it's probably going to be about a 0.2 split. Like I'm not looking for anything crazy. I'm not trying to break records here. So I'm thinking boom, boom, something like that. Just we're looking at track and recoil, and how does it work on each circle. Starting with the SIG, we'll let it go first this time, and we'll see how this goes. Threw this first one low. Good here. Was good. Decent here. Good here. Here and here. Here and here. Here and here. Got a little crazy. Got a little ahead of myself on these. And then tried to kind of slow it back down here and here. And then did okay. I think this was the right pace through here. And then I sped up a little bit. I'll try and stay consistent here with the Kimber. All right, now I've got the Kimber, same test, shooting doubles at 7 yards on these circles. Here we go. Okay, same kind of thing. I tried to keep a similar pace. Doubles, doubles, good, good. Kept it a little bit better, and then I got a little crazy through here, dialed it back in. I don't think there's any question I performed better with the Kimber on that. Look at that. Just for fairness, let's run it one more time with each gun and just confirm that I performed the same way. So we're gonna go back to the SIG, run the same drill. All right, we're on round 2 with the SIG here, shooting doubles. Again, we're at 7 yards. Let's see how it does. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We'll call 9 of the circles were successful. Let's run it again with the Kimber. Okay, here we go. This is round 2 with the Kimber shooting doubles. Here we go. That one's too close. So that's probably a miss. One of those is on the line. The other one's a miss. The way I've been counting those. So again, 9 out of 10. If I'm just looking at this purely from, hey, there were 4 targets, point system, the Kimber wins. If I look at it as the very first time I'd ever run this drill and needed to get a rhythm for it was with the SIG, and I put it at a disadvantage. On the last one they ran pretty equal. In my hand, they both felt like they come back to 0 pretty quick. I could register when the dot was back in the circle. And on the first round, I wasn't doing that. I was predictive shooting. And then as I got through the other ones, I was actually tracking the dot a little bit. I was waiting for it to see that dot come back into the circle in front of my vision, and obviously my performance improved. I'm learning something too, right? That's way better for me to shoot that way. So I improved as the drill went on, and so did the performance of the guns. Again, I think that's more my hand and my performance than it is the performance of the guns. The question that I think is really going to be the difference maker for most people is there's enough of a weight difference here that I think on an all-day match, the weight of the SIG might kind of start to wear on some people, and they may not like the weight of it. The weight of the Kimber is much lighter, and honestly, looking at the performance on return to 0, on follow-up shots, on accuracy, on everything, if weight is a concern to you, the Kimber's kind of a clear winner. Let's look at what that weight exactly is. We'll get away from the gunfire, we'll go back into the shop, and we'll talk about weight, feeling the hand, and finish this comparison off. Public ranges, man. Crazy. All right. Here, we're going to talk about a couple things here on the trigger, on the magazines, just some things that you need to know about these two guns. If you're looking at them like many people are, these are pitted against each other because they're just in the same price point, and they're two brands that have a little bit of history with them, and so they each of these guns comes with a little bit of baggage. So let's talk about some of that and just get this knocked out. First thing you need to know: the SIG P211 takes SIG P320 magazines. These magazines are cheap. There's a lot of different base pads for them. They're metal. They're a good magazine, and they perform really well, and they're abundant. They're everywhere. If you're a guy who has a 320 or had a 320 and you have a bunch of magazines that maybe you're hesitant to use right now for whatever reason, these mags, that's a big advantage, that those 320 mags fit in that gun. It's a big deal. Now the 2K11 takes standard 2011 style magazines, right? So here, this is a Kimber mag actually. I've got the TTI base pad on there. Here's a Checkmate mag with a flat, and it fits perfectly. Get locked back. All the mags that I've ever tried on this gun seem to function flawlessly. I haven't had any issues at all with functionality on the mags for this 2K11 or my previous 2K11. Any 2011 magazine, I have not found one that does not function properly in the 2K11. But they're a little bit more expensive than obviously the 320 mags. Now let's talk trigger. The SIG P211 is a Series 80 trigger, which means there is a firing pin block in the slide. So it's one more thing that the trigger pull is overcoming. So there's a little bit more going on in that trigger pull. But for a Series 80 trigger, man, this thing is really nice. I've got this down at like 3 pounds, I think. Yeah, there we go. It's at 3 pounds. I did play with the sear spring a little bit, and just cleaned it up and made little tweaks. Nothing that a kind of normal DIY couldn't do, but it comes back to a wall, and it's a great trigger. No denying that. There's a little bit less going on in the Series 70 trigger that's on the Kimber. Short take up to a wall, boom. And again, I did a little bit of tweaking on that sear spring, but nothing crazy. And this gun is pulling at about 2.5 pounds. So it's a much more traditional 1911 trigger. The reset on it is fantastic. A little bit longer on the SIG and not quite as tactile. That could be the adjustments that I made to get the trigger pull down where it was. This trigger pull started around 4 pounds when I got the gun, and it's down to 3 now. So again, both perfectly acceptable, but that's a key difference. Okay, let's talk weight for a second here. Let's get this thing zeroed out. Okay, sorry about the reflection here. Let's do this. On the Kimber weighs 35.4 ounces, empty, with a mag inserted, 39.2. Okay, the SIG, empty, 41.1, with a mag inserted, 45.1. Okay, to give you an idea how that compares, here is my CZ Shadow 2. It's at 42.5. Okay. 42.5. And again, the SIG sits at 41.1. So about 1.5 ounces more for a CZ Shadow 2. So that gives you some kind of an idea of the kind of weight category you're in with the SIG.
So what's the conclusion? SIG P211, Kimber 2K11. These guns are more closely matched than I would have expected as far as a performance standpoint goes. Now, this is tough for me because, as a lot of you know, the SIG P211 is my favorite handgun. It hasn't been without its rocky bit in the road, but I love this gun. It's been my competition handgun now for about 8 months. And I love this gun. One advantage that it has, and something I still love it for, is because I can very easily swap the comp out for a sight block, and I can run this gun as limited optics. And that does give me a little bit more flexibility and a little bit of advantage. So for right now, this will still be my limited optics gun. But there's a big but coming. I have something on order from Jarvis that may give me the same kind of flexibility here on the 2K11. If you're a guy who wants to be able to run in open and in limited optics, if this is a competition gun for you, as of today, it's a little bit easier and cheaper to get your hands on the comp delete for the SIG P211. There's several of them out there. In fact, SIG makes one. And it's a little bit more difficult because you got to order a new barrel for the 2K11. If competition's your game, that might lean you towards the SIG, and that's, for right now, the gun that I'm going to be leaning into. But the reality is, in my performance testing, I shot the Kimber better. And that really surprised me. So if we're just looking at range toy, if category of competition isn't a consideration for you, I don't think you can go wrong with either gun. If one feels better in your hand, go with that. But I've got to say, the Kimber impressed me, and I would not be honest if I gave the win to the SIG. The Kimber in this comparison came out on top, no doubt in my mind. There were things I liked about the SIG, and there were a couple times where it ran better. And like I say, moving forward, I still I do prefer the weight. This fits my hand a little bit better, but I shoot the Kimber better. That surprised me. Maybe it shocked you too. I know I got a couple buddies are going to be like, "What? Danny's SIG was dethroned?" I get called a SIG shill all the time just because I love this gun. It's a fantastic firearm. But today's winner, the Kimber beat it out. Thanks for stopping by. Like, subscribe, all those things, and we'll see you next time. See you out on the range, guys. Bye.